Well, I thank everybody for being patient here this evening. It's been kind of a busy day, and I'm happy to finish it off with all of you, but appreciate everybody standing by an extra few minutes here for this edition of Hawkeye Hangout. And as you can see on the bottom ticker, the line is open. I'm going to open up the actual phone line in a second, but the line to join via StreamYard is open. So you'll click the link in the description below in front of where it says, or I should say behind, where it says join the show in the description of this video here on YouTube. And you can join. You don't have to have your video on if you choose not to, but you can join and love to hear from you. This is a big week, folks. We have had our ups and downs here these first 4 weeks, no question about it. There is reason to be concerned. There are some reasons to be encouraged, I think, based on what we saw against Rutgers. But this is a game where I think there's no question about it. The Iowa players have had this game marked since last December. So we're going to talk about the keys to victory. You might have caught my preview that I released on the channel here a few hours ago. And of course, that was just a 10-minute preview that basically I summed up what I believe to be the keys for the game on both sides. And I talked about it. I guested on the Michigan at the Voice of College Football show earlier today on their Michigan live show, and enjoyed talking with those guys, as always. But the reason I bring that up is because the injury situation with Iowa is fascinating. And you may have seen the thumbnail to lead the show off. Keegan Johnson out again. Rumors continue to circulate with him. I mean, we've had rumors with this guy since week 1 or earlier. I have no insight. I have no firm insight. You know, I've had people reach out to me that have heard things. I've had rumors that have kind of come and gone. And again, how much substance is there with his situation? Is it simply an injury? Is there more? I don't know. But he's not playing this weekend, and that's a big deal. I think Jim Harbaugh, with what they have skill position wise on their offense, have an opportunity against Iowa's somewhat depleted secondary to hit on some deep shots. Let me get my. So I don't know, how much will Jim Harbaugh try to take advantage of the lack of depth back there? I think Iowa could be deeper than we think. I have confidence in Phil Parker to have depth that nobody knows about. You see Jamison Heinz out of Humboldt on there, who's a walk-on. Makes me cringe a little bit thinking that he could end up being a corner on Saturday, but Brendan Diaz-Fernandez is not playing. We'll see on Terry Roberts. I don't think it's real positive, and we know Jamari Harris is out for the season. So you're down potentially 3 guys. TJ Hall, the true freshman, will likely play. Of course, Cooper DeJean and Riley Moss will be thrust in to further duty. But we may see Jamison Heinz. Frankly, we could see a guy like Deshaun Lee, true freshman who did not enroll early. TJ Hall did enroll early. But you just never know. It's going to be fascinating to see how Jim Harbaugh approaches this game. Of course, the game this Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time on Fox. It'll be followed by Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson, and I believe that will be a pretty fun and active show. I'm just going to guess, regardless of result on the field. I think everybody knows I hope Iowa can win this game, but regardless, I think that will be a real fun show to talk about. A real fun game to talk about, I should say. All right, let's get to our first caller. I believe we've got Brian on the line. Brian, how you doing this evening?
Hey, doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Looks like Brian's turning on his camera. He's going to be a part of this thing. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, but it's like I got the inverted. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like I'm inverted, whereas on
You're,
Zoom you can show the mirrored image, but on this it's the inverted image, so it's not mirrored. So I'm turning my head to the left. I don't know. Either way.
well, but no, I can read your hat.
Yeah, but like on Oh, I guess you can. Okay, I'm all sorts of messed up.
Yeah,
This
no, I
is
don't think it's not like Zoom where they change everything around. I'm sure there's a setting you can do that. No, I can read your hat.
it's all good. It's all good.
Does
I'm
it say
I'm I'm
bad
coming
or
from the
back? I
mobile
can
device
read it.
today.
Does it say
Well,
bad or
good.
back?
Bad. It's a golf brand, but I gotta lock in with some Hawkeye of the Storm merch for my. Is there any merch dropping or
I gotta get some merch. Yeah, I gotta get some merch, man. That's one thing I've been,
listen?
I have dropped the ball on. I've had people ask me about that, and I just haven't gotten it done.
It's coming. I know it, and as soon as it does, we'll be repping.
Let's do
But
it.
um, but hey, I'm excited. I got to. I'm down here in Austin, Texas. I actually was hanging out with a guy tonight who's going to Iowa City from Austin. So he's super excited. He took the dub on me. So I'm hoping he brings that good energy to Iowa City this weekend. But what I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit was I've been feeling the vibe of a lot of the callers on this line, and maybe even you a little bit, Corey, about some disdain towards the offensive side of the football. But today I was thinking to myself, I thought, Kirk Ferentz is the longest tenured coach, right? In football, right?
In
Um,
FBS football, yeah.
in FBS football, right? Um, he has had a history of taking down some of these teams. Now, I joined the Hawkeye family in 2017, but one thing that I quickly noticed was that Kirk Ferentz is not quick to open up the playbook.
You
And
don't
you might
say.
make the argument, open up the playbook as in. So I think right. I think
No, no,
back
no,
initially.
no. I just said you don't say.
Yeah, yeah. Think back to like the first time, like Ohio State in 2017. That was unbelievable. Um, I'm gonna have to maybe change some of my opinions and have some faith for this weekend that although Keegan Johnson, although we are still missing some weapons offensively, and although some of the offensive line struggles might persist, um, I gotta imagine that we got something. There might be something cooking there, and I just want to encourage some of the people that might be listening in tonight to remember why Kirk Ferentz is in the position he's in and think back to some of these historic wins, right? And I know Iowa State didn't go the way we wanted it to. I think he's still looking down the pipe at a lot of these trophy games and thinking, we still have a chance at some of these games. And, you know, do we open up the playbook against Iowa State and risk kind of showing some of our, because obviously we don't have all the weapons in our repertoire, so we can't get too tricky and we can't get too deep into that playbook. But maybe do we save some of that to put up 25 to 30 points against a Michigan to let our defense hold them down and keep that over under firmly at 42.
So
So
so I appreciate your positivity, first of all. I can tell you right now that I was not scoring 30 points.
listen, I'm not saying I think that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I did identify the over under at 42, and I know Michigan is still favored by 11.
Yes.
But I look at that number and I think, if we could be closer to the 50-50 mark on that 42 number, the closer we get to that 50-50 mark, the better chance we have at winning. So even if we can put up 21 to 25 points, I think that sets us up. I don't know if you had any chance to watch Maryland Michigan last weekend, but
Some of
man,
it.
that quarterback he struggled a little bit, especially in that first half. He struggled. And I think we can, with Logan Lee having as much success as he's having with some of the pressure up front, I think that we could potentially make him uncomfortable. And so
Well,
I don't know.
I'll say this. If there's any time to unleash Aaron Graves, it's this week. Because I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
he's a guy who, look, I mean, containment of JJ McCarthy is going to be a concern, but I agree with you that you pressure that kid as much as possible. He's never been in an environment like this. He has shown at times to be prone to taking maybe some unnecessary risk. And I've been saying all week, if you've been listening to my stuff, Brian, that I think
Mhm.
That's the biggest key, is forcing him to make decisions that are questionable. They don't even have to be bad decisions, but if you make questionable decisions with this Iowa defense, as you know, they've proven they'll bite you. And sometimes
Right.
they'll bite you for points directly. We saw Cooper DeJean take one back last week. We saw Kayvon Merriweather take one back last week. So I agree with you. I actually believe the right move for Michigan this week is to be ultra conservative. Why take risks? What's the reason to take risks if you're Michigan? Like, there's no reason to think they can't just go up and beat Iowa at the line of scrimmage and win this game, whether it's 20-10 or 21-10 or whatever. Like, they don't need to take shots down the field to win. It's
Right.
nothing. They're not turning the ball over. Just don't turn the ball over.
Right. Right. And that's the kind of MO that we've been playing with as well. I think keep the ball on the sideline and don't
Absolutely.
put it over the middle. You made that
Right.
you had a caller last week talk about, it's like, why don't put it over the middle? It's like, I'll tell you exactly why you don't put it over the middle, because Spencer Petras will put it 10 feet over the guy's head and put it right into the arms of the free safety. But yeah, I mean, I think, we got, I just think that Kinnick is such a hard place, especially with these young quarterbacks to play. Like, rest in peace. But JT Barrett, I mean, like, you saw how hard he struggled back in 2017, and you know, quarterbacks just come in. Even Trace McSorley, like when he had his success in Kinnick, like these guys still struggle, and getting some upfront pressure along with, just the environment. I think it's going to cause problems for him. So
I tell you, Trace McSorley was a dog, though. To go
he
down and win
was,
that
man.
game at the
God, he
end.
was so fun to watch.
Oh, I didn't like him at all. I didn't like who he
No,
was.
I didn't
And
either, but
he is
he
the
just,
definition of a gamer. And I think it's people like Trace McSorley that, and I understand that I'm not trying to say that Alex Padilla is Trace McSorley, but, and I don't mean to change this conversation into a quarterback discussion, but
yeah.
he's the kind of kid that make people look at a guy like Alex Padilla and say, why can't we give this guy some sort of a leash, give him a chance in a game? I know he played some last year, but Trace McSorley didn't have any. I mean, he's 6'1", maybe.
Mhm.
Um, not loaded with athleticism. Was mobile, but not. I mean, I wouldn't. Would you call him dual threat? I guess he was to
I
some
think I
extent.
would.
Sure, but my point is, boy, he showed up in games and in the biggest moments showed out. So that's a different discussion. But that was the one game that Iowa lost. They've won 4 of the last 5 games against top 5 opponents in Kinnick. The one game they lost was that Penn State game in 17. Boy,
Mhm.
you said you became a fan in 17, Brian?
Well, I actually, funny enough, funny you mentioned Padilla. I actually grew up just down the street from him. I'd always been a supporter of the Hawkeyes, but wasn't until I started giving my financial even to the University of Iowa that I actually fully bought into the Hawkeyes. So it was so I got to, I grew up a Colorado State fan, but going to the school actually converted me into a full fan. But yeah, I mean, been frustrating to watch since then. But gosh, these games are fun and they're unpredictable, and these games are what make being a Hawkeye fan fun, in my opinion. And it's it's just, you never know, right? Like, you can never count us out. And you should argue. I think if any other team in the country is playing Michigan in their home stadium right now, virtually any other team, I think this line is a lot larger, right? I don't think any other team is getting just 11 points. I think a lot of
Ohio
teams would
State
get
is. Ohio State's
13.
Ohio
Yeah.
State's getting more than 11.
Yeah, no, I mean just any, like, if you were to put any team that's on the same playing field as Iowa, they should not be only favored by 11, even though they're in Kinnick
Okay.
Stadium. I think that just gives more credit to what Iowa's been able to do against in some of these games. But I'll leave the line back open again. Appreciate everything. Appreciate the show. Um,
I'll get on that merch, Brian. We'll get some merch here soon, I promise.
get on it, man. I'll be on it as soon as you get it out.
Appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for the
All right.
call. Appreciate Brian calling in from Austin, Texas. And yes, in follow up to ZJ Wags, certainly thoughts and prayers to all those in Florida. I've got a lot of family down in Sarasota, got a lot of family, excuse me, down in Lakeland, and friends in Tampa, Spring Hill. We're thinking about all you folks. that's what you get when you live in Florida, but it doesn't make it any easier when it happens. And boy, a lot of rain coming their way. I haven't been following the news today, which is probably a good thing because as much as you want to stay on top of things, it doesn't necessarily make you feel good. Had a good day. It was a beautiful day here in Iowa, man alive. The sunshine and gets cold at night. I'll tell you that. It gets cold at night. It was warm with the sun, and then the sun goes down, and boom, you're freezing your tail off. And I found that out the hard way today. But I digress. Great call from Brian to start us out. And, he brings up 2017 really being the launching pad for his fandom. I go back to 2017. And I understand Iowa had different pieces in 17 and 18. But the one thing I really admired about Kirk Ferentz in 17 and 18 was I would guess it was his trust in LeVar Woods to run trick plays on special teams. And I get that's just one aspect of the game. But you think about the polecat play against Ohio State. You think about the pass from Rastetter to Epinesa against Michigan State in 17. You think about the pass from Rastetter to Sam Brinks out of I think it was a field goal formation. It had to have been a field goal formation in 2018. They had I'm trying to think, the snap. Who was the long snapper that snapped it with his left hand in 18 to TJ Hawkinson, who ran end around against Minnesota for a touchdown? I mean, they took risks, and I know it was just on special teams, but that trust that Kirk Ferentz evidently had in LeVar Woods, where did that go? Why has that not been a part of the game plan? And again, I know that you can call it their trick plays. John Stiglmeyer, I love this quote from Tyler Merriam, who's the radio guy for South Dakota State. Guess John Stiglmeyer calls trick plays communist football. Well, if it's communist football, let's be a commie for a game or be a commie for a quarter, right? In this case. But if you can adopt some degree of that mindset offensively, this is the game to do that. And I hope that Iowa has something ready and that Brian has something ready. And I'll tell you this, folks. If Brian Ferentz or Kirk Ferentz, specifically Brian, this is Brian's responsibility as the offensive coordinator and as the quarterback's coach. If he doesn't have new plays ready, I'm not talking about new plays for this week, but we haven't seen anything new this year. I'm talking about from 2021 to 2022. Spencer Petras said at some point last year, he was asked during the season, well, we're not out here designing new plays. Well, that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. You and your staff are not creative enough. Primarily, that falls on the staff. You should be designing new plays. Now, you may say, well, Corey, they shouldn't be designing plays week to week. Not according to Don Patterson. Hayden Fry's offenses, and those were much better offenses than anything Kirk Ferentz has had here, minus maybe 2002 at Brad Banks, which was a really good year. No coincidence that they had a mobile quarterback. But those offenses under Don Patterson, Bill Snyder, Hayden Fry, those offenses, they were unique because they had creative play calling. They had thoughtful play calling. And believe you me, folks, there were plays that were designed for specific opponents. And if Brian Ferentz doesn't show anything different this weekend, I mean, I hate to say this, it's almost a fireable offense. Because we've been saying it all offseason, but you can't go from 123rd in total offense in the country and then come out the next year and expect to do the exact same thing. Now, one could argue that the first 4 weeks of the season, South Dakota State, Iowa State, Nevada, and Rutgers were games they could win playing vanilla. Now, I'm not saying they've done that, but one could make that argument. They did lose to Iowa State, so that didn't work out. But I'm just saying, if there's any chance that they've been holding back, now's the time to pull out those created plays, that creativity that we've been lacking. Now's the time. It's not against Illinois next week. It's not against Ohio State in a few weeks. It's Saturday. All right. Well, we'll get to while I try to relaunch this here. We will get to our next caller on StreamYard, which we won't have a problem with. Owen.
Hello.
How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Apparently got a sound issue, but
yeah, glad to have you.
Glad to have you on StreamYard.
Yeah, I'm a very new Hawkeye fan. My Cooper is I grew up with Cooper. He was in my grade in my school.
Okay.
And I just wanted to hear from you because I know a lot of people were advocating for the Wildcat Cooper on offense. What do you think about that? And personally, before you get to that, I believe that that's an option that's viable, and because I feel like he's a guy who you tell him to do something, he does it. I've seen it. I played with him, and I know that for a fact. So what do you think about that?
Well, I don't know who started that rumor, or not a rumor, but that idea.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to take credit for that, but I did not buy that or copy that from someone else. I mean, this past weekend, again, I'm sure other people had that thought before I did, but I just look at his skill set and I think, man, the kid played quarterback in high school, and you watch him return the pick six, and it wasn't like it wasn't like he was running the decathlon, but I mean, the dude's got some speed, he's got some quickness. And if you're going to run a Wildcat, which Iowa did a lot in 2020 during COVID for whatever reason, they did it with Tracy and with Goodson and with Sargent. Why not run it with a guy who is actually a threat to throw?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Who else is going to run it that has experience as a quarterback? I'm trying to think on this offense. So next year they'll have Alex Moda, who's a quarterback who will be converted into a wide receiver. So he would be a candidate in a year or two. But I'm trying to think of other guys who are skill position guys. There probably are players out here, but I don't think Bostic. I don't know his history. I'm assuming he was a receiver throughout his high school years. Devin Hilson is a guy who doesn't play much. He could be a candidate if he had an arm. He doesn't. I'm just trying to think. You don't have to run Wildcat, but if you have a guy who fits the mold, you've already got it in the playbook. Why not run it? And I think it's clear that this would be the guy you run it with.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, even I watched every single high school game he played, and I mean, the kid's got an arm. He's got the intelligence for it. He can read a defense. I'm sure they've ran it in practice. I think there was something about it where he was playing again, like on scout team or something last year, playing quarterback. I mean, I just think I think a lot of people want it. I see Twitter all the time. They want Cooper on offense, whether that's wide receiver or quarterback. I mean, I don't think they're going to slot him in at first string just on every play, but I mean, I think it's a great option. I don't know why not.
Well, why not is because of the head coaches. That's why, Owen.
Yeah, I think we understand that, but yeah. It's a little frustrating with how things have been going. I mean, I'm not going to attack any certain thing, but it's a little frustrating when we see how many offensive touchdowns you have through X amount of games. You would think that something, there's so many conspiracies on why things are happening, but I just feel like a little mix in there would be nice.
Well, I mean, what conspiracies are out there?
I think
clear why it's happening.
Yeah, but I just heard that there was a certain amount of plays being ran that there wasn't very extensive playbook or expanding.
That's absolutely the case. I mean, that's absolutely I get what you're saying. That's absolutely the case. We've had Don Patterson come on the air and say we need to have more plays.
Yeah.
No, we're not creative. Like I said, we're not creative enough. We don't have enough plays in the playbook.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think necessarily Brian is the best at calling the plays you have in the playbook, but you pair that with, I don't know if it's inability or lack of desire or just for whatever reason, not developing a wider array of options. You pair those two things together, and that's what you get. You get an offense that's totally inept. And yeah. I'm right there with you. I think the creative side of things, and I know Kirk Ferentz was asked that question yesterday. Would you consider somebody from defense and offense? He's actually the one who volunteered Cooper to Gene. I think it was
I did see that,
register. asked him, which would you consider making a move this late in the season, or how would you do this? And he brought up, well, if you're going to do it with anybody, do it with DeJean, but we're not doing that. So now that doesn't mean that he won't at some point down the road, but I think his track record would indicate that he won't. I also don't have a problem with talking about it, though, because I think it's a fair idea. People, those people who have laughed at the idea think it's hilarious that we're even suggesting it. Again, the people don't understand how football works if they think that that's not a feasible thing to have 3 or 4 plays ready for someone like Cooper DeJean. Now, here's a question for you, Owen. I'm curious because I talked with Don Patterson about this on the air. Did Cooper ever? I'm always going to screw up the high school. Is it OABCHG?
It's OABCIG. Yeah.
I was close. Okay. So at that high school, did he run any option stuff? I'm assuming he did. I mean, was he always just dropping back and throwing, or did he have some read option stuff where he's handing off to the back and actually taking it himself at times, handing it off?
I'm not necessarily sure on read if there was any reads in there. I would have to ask someone who knows the playbook if they had any, and I could definitely do that. But I know we threw a lot. Like we very rarely, if we ran the ball, it was Cooper running the ball out of shotgun quarterback. Like he was either a draw or as a broken play, he was taking it. And I can't remember if there was any reads, but we rarely ever handed it off to a tailback or a running back or anything like that.
So, that would be a question if we're talking Wildcat, but I agree with you. There's various ways that you could deploy someone like that. I even brought up Xavier Wampa.
Yes.
Right now you're burning his red shirt as a gunner. It's just, I'm not saying it's wrong. I've said it. I agree with Don Patterson on this too. Red shirting is overrated. If he pans out to be the 5-star that he was rated coming out of high school, he's not going to be here 5 years. So you don't need to red shirt him. I just am looking at it thinking, boy, you're just depleted at wide receiver. And who of the wide receivers, you probably watched plenty of Xavier Wampa tape. Who of the wide receivers on this Iowa offense, healthy or not healthy, would you compare most to Xavier Wampa? Of all of the receivers that Iowa has.
I'm not sure. I maybe like I honestly haven't watched too much of high school Xavier, but like
I can tell you what I think. He's about the same size as Keegan Johnson. I think he's got similar athleticism to Keegan Johnson. Now, granted, they're playing different players, different positions at the college level. But my point is, Keegan Johnson ain't playing, and who knows when the kid's going to play, if the kid's going to play. I'm not saying you make a full-blown change, but I think you have to think about these things. And if you're going to, if you're going to take a shot to a guy like Xavier Wampa, I mean, boy, that's what you need. You need to get the ball downfield, and they're having problems getting it downfield to other guys. I mean, Brody Breck's coming in there. Brody Breck doesn't have any more experience than Xavier Wampa does really at wide receiver. He's been hurt since he got here too.
That's it's an interesting thing. The past couple games, wide receivers really haven't been, and it may not. It's definitely not falling all on them, but haven't really been super into the game when it comes to receiving or anything like that. So it's interesting to see how that's going to move forward. If there's going to be, I know the Nevada game was all right, but not a lot of catches coming out from the wideouts recently.
You're right. That's a huge problem, and it was a problem last year. It was one of Coach Patterson's biggest things. Lack of receiver involvement.
Yeah, what did Arlen have one catch?
One catch, and that was the only target he had in the game, and I believe there were 3 targets total in the game.
But see, that's just not. I can't buy that. Can't be happening. I don't believe that Arlen should be getting targeted. Even if he got targeted 3 times, I still think that's a little bit he's got to have more catches, more touches, more looks. It's just it has to be better.
I agree, sir. Anything else tonight?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
I appreciate you calling in, I think for the first time, correct?
Yes.
All right, we'll hopefully talk after the game Saturday.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Owen. All right, here's what I'm going to do. We've got James and Vincent, and we had one other drop off. So if you're on here and you're waiting, you're in the queue, so don't jump off because I'm not able to get you back in the proper order. So Vincent and James, you're on right now. To the caller who was calling in on the phone line here a few minutes ago, and nobody could hear you. Let's try that again. I tried to make a change. I don't know if it's going to make a difference. Never had that issue before with the system. If not, then we'll just have to go with StreamYard this evening. But if someone could call the number real quick, as even just a test, and we'll see if we can hear you. And that way I know whether we should just shut the call line down, that call line down for tonight or not. The number is 515-635-1601. I think we have our caller back on the line. Caller, can you hear me? All right, Will's on the line. Oh, folks in the chat, let's see if can anybody hear Will? Say something again, Will. Crickets. Mike says crickets. So nothing on your. So apparently we're having some technical issues with the call line tonight, Will. So can you join with the StreamYard link? Okay. All right. Appreciate it, Will. We'll talk soon. All right. I don't know what's going on with them. Never had an issue with. I don't think I've ever had an issue. That's credit to, I guess, the individual who set it up, Johnny O Show. He's got a great channel on YouTube as well. Check his stuff out. But I shouldn't be promoting, I guess, his production. It's not his fault that this failed. But my point is, I've never had an issue with the call line before now. So let's get to our next caller who's here on StreamYard. It's James, who's a regular caller. I'm assuming it's the James. I think it is. How you doing, buddy?
Yes, yeah, it is, Corey. How you doing tonight?
I am wonderful. Until I found out the call line is malfunctioning, I was wonderful.
I was gonna say something after that, like when I got on, but you figured it out before that. But I was gonna say, first off, I heard you talking to the last guy about like the playbook, and like I don't understand how they say it's so hard for a quarterback to understand the playbook, but they run the same like 10 plays the whole time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what's so hard and complex about it when you run the same thing?
Well, I don't want to oversimplify it. There are certainly aspects of this offense, and I'm not a former quarterback at the Division I level, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that, but Don Patterson would. And there are pre-snap things. I understand Iowa puts more pressure, I guess, on its quarterback for pre-snap routine and whatnot. But I agree with you that what you're doing is not working. So if it is complicated, then maybe that's part of the problem, right? I mean, to just use that as an excuse for not making a change, say at quarterback, is sort of just your way of saying, we don't have any idea what we're doing, because you would think you'd realize, hey, maybe the complexity of this, why I feel uncomfortable going to someone else, that's part of the reason our quarterbacks aren't picking it up.
You also see something about like a lot of teams. I watch a lot of college football, obviously. You see a lot of teams look to the sideline, to like use the pre-play option as like another coach calls the pre-play. You know what I'm saying? Like the read. They get the read from the sideline instead of the quarterback calling it. Maybe that's a way to simplify the playbook, but get more plays in, if that makes sense. And have like the coach call it, but then you can call different plays out of there. Instead of like having the quarterback try to figure it out, because maybe that's less on their plate. Obviously, I don't know if Brian can do that. I don't know if he's that like intelligent, but I see a lot of teams do that, where they look over the sideline, and then either call the new player, stick with the same play by the look what the defense is giving you, and maybe that could be less of the quarterback's job or somebody else's job.
Yeah, and I'm not great as far as knowing the ins and outs of exactly that process and who that falls on and at what point. I mean, that'd be a better question for Coach Patterson, but. Yeah, they got to do something to simplify it. Obviously, right now is not the time to simplify it. We kept hearing all off season how this was a simplified offense, right? People kept saying that, and it hasn't really been the case. I mean, it's been pretty much the same thing, at least from my vantage point. Maybe there's things happening that I'm not noticing that seem that are simplified. not as complex, but I don't really think it's showing up on the field.
I mean, I've been watching Iowa football since I was like 1, since pretty much out of the womb. My dad pretty much, just the only thing my dad would watch with me is Iowa football. So like ever since I've known, it's pretty much looked the same. So like everything looks the same. You know what I mean? Like all the plays pretty much look the same. Like maybe a little different, but like they're all pretty much the same. It's like they haven't changed. So maybe, and one thing I've always told myself is like they're not going to change because they keep winning. And it's not the offense that wins. We know this, right? It's the defense that wins a lot of games, right? But look at him saying the resume, because he won 8 in a row, but the defense won 8 in a row for Beatrice. But like in Kirk's eyes, we're winning. You know what I mean? Like maybe in their eyes, we don't have to change as much because they win games. And I don't ever want to see them lose. I'd rather have them go 12-0, 13-0, make the championship, right? That's what everybody wants. But like sometimes losing might be a good thing in the fact that maybe it will lead to change.
So are you saying? What are you saying?
Like, okay, so the playbook is always the same, right? But look at his track record as a coach. Like he wins a lot, but like recently he's won a lot more. So like, but the defense has won those games. But my thing is, he's like, I don't need to change my ways yet because I'm still winning. I won 10 games. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he's changing it because he's winning games. So he's like, nothing really needs to be done.
I understand. I agree with you. That is what he does, but I don't agree with it either. That's not the way to look at a football team. That's
I don't agree with it. I'm just saying that's
three different units, completely separate units.
I feel like that's the way he looks. But the X question too, you asked the same guy. The minute you asked that question, I said he looks exactly like Keegan on tape to me. I watched a lot of tape from him playing at Southeast Polk. They also played against my alma mater. So
you think that's a fair comparison? You think that's a fair comparison?
Yeah, I think it's a really fair comparison because like he's taller than most receivers. So like Arlen and Nico are kind of shorter on that realm. X is a little taller, so I feel like he fits Keegan's mold a lot better, especially like fits more like a Keegan than what I would say any other receiver on this roster if you compare him to somebody. Just because he can get the jump balls. I've seen him get a lot of jump balls last year in high school. And I think Keegan's more the jump ball guy, but he also can go deep and run by you. You know what I mean? He has that speed too. So, like, I think if they put him at wide receiver, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Obviously, I think he's better off in the long run, like going to the next level, like to the NFL as a DB, obviously, right? Like like his skill set could portray better in the NFL as a DB. But for Iowa, he would help more as a wide receiver right now because they're not really using him as a DB.
And again, you don't need to convert him. I mean, this is not a matter of converting him. It's about having a few plays in the playbook. And wide receiver is not the hardest play to learn. And he's already got a foundation. That's the point.
Yeah, true. It's not like he's learning from scratch. He's knew it last year, like he did it last year in college or in high school. So like still it's the same routes. He just has to learn the plays a little bit. But like if you give him a certain route to look at, like you run only these 2 routes when you're in the game. Obviously at some point you're gonna read that, but like for now, you know what I'm saying? For like one game, like just focus on these 2 routes. The next game, focus on these 2 routes. You know what I'm saying? So it makes it easier for him. So he knows what to look for when it comes to the play. Or like to call certain play. Oh, you have a slant, or you have a slant and a corner route as the 2 routes you're running this week. And then next week you have like a post and like a fade you're running. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how you make it easier. Is you just give them like a few routes to look at.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I feel like this week will be a good test for us. I mean, obviously, I think our defense will keep us in, but we'll see how the offense plays. That's obviously always the biggest question, how the offense plays. But, I mean, one thing I think we all talk about, but we don't talk about enough, especially in this game, is Torrey Taylor. Like, like if he can get him backed up, then JJ can maybe make the mistakes more than he would. Like you said earlier, I listened to you in the Michigan one where you're talking about the north end zone. Listen to that part of it. Like if we can get him backed up in there, maybe JJ might make a mistake because he can't understand what's going on or can't hear. So they get a couple false starts and they get put back at like the 2-yard line, and their playbook gets a lot more simpler.
That north end zone, the incredible advantage. And boy, I wish, on a totally separate note, I wish Iowa would follow that concept with Carver Hawkeye Arena, but that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, you get JJ down there, and who knows? I mean, let's not forget, Sean Clifford was playing well against Iowa last season, but he did throw a pick down near his own goal line in that game last year. Remember that? That was in the No, that was not north end zone. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and
That
then Roberson came in and they had like 3 false starts on like
right.
back to back to back
Yeah.
plays. But another thing I was gonna say too is like I thought recruiting a lot. I see, but we haven't really offered another running back yet. After Rayfield in like the last week or whatever since its commitment, we haven't offered another running back. However, I did see that we did offer another wide receiver, so I don't know maybe if they're not high on the other two, but like I did see that part of it. But like I just know they haven't at least offered another running back yet, so maybe they're kind of be like they're not gonna get another one. It's just something I've always looked at. I always look at recruiting every day just because I'm one of them fans that are curious. Like I've followed the team since I've pretty much was born. So like for me, it's always cool to maybe see guys who might go to Iowa. So I guess I like to look at the updates every day because they're always posting stuff. But
JP says, pretty sure JT Barrett is not dead. Did someone say he was dead?
the last guy said, the first guy said, rest in peace to him. But I think he meant Dwayne Haskins. I think he got him and Haskins confused.
I see. Okay. I see. Okay. No, JT Barrett is not dead.
Yeah.
I absolutely tragic what happened with Haskins. But yes, anyways. No, I agree with all that. James, it's going to be the time, like I said, to pull out all the stops, and we will have a true measuring stick Saturday. I mean, this is the first time you can say this has been a true measuring stick will be this Saturday.
Yep, and I'll call you after the show on Saturday or Sunday. We'll see. But enjoy your night, and hopefully we can at least compete. Because I think some people give us a chance, but I think a lot like us in this group give us a chance. I think a lot of people outside of like the Hawkeye family don't really give us a chance. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So like, I feel like if we can keep, I think obviously we have faith because we've seen it before. So with Michigan coming in as they were third or fourth when they came in with Jabril Peppers and all that.
Yeah, they've done it for the last 5 times, and they've done it against this coaching staff or part of this coaching staff.
So like we have faith in that way, but like obviously everybody outside the room for obvious reasons don't have faith. But we'll see what happens because like my dad always tells me, you never know. Just why you play the game because you never know what can happen. Like look at Ohio State. Everybody put us dead to rights. We got a pick 6 to start the game, and that changed the momentum. So you never know what can happen. Enjoy your night, and go Hawks.
All right, James. Appreciate the call as always. And Vincent, Mike, Michael, and Will, you're up next here at From the Hawkeye of the Storm, this edition of Hawkeye Hangout. As a reminder, please like and subscribe if you've already subscribed. I don't know how many likes we have so far, but go down and scroll down just for a second and hit that thumbs up button. That certainly does help the show. And if you're interested in sponsoring this show or the biggest hit, I guess you could say, for this channel, and that's our post-game coverage with Coach John Patterson, reach out to me from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. That's from the eye of the storm at outlook.com, and reach out about sponsoring one of the fastest growing Hawkeye platforms on the internet. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, again, Vincent, Mike, Michael, Will, all coming up here during Hawkeye Hangout here at From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Hawkeye fans, let's talk about health and performance optimization for a moment. Our sponsor, Ascent Nutrition, offers amazing products. It's actually owned by former Iowa graduate Lance Shuttler. Now, I've decided to partner with Ascent Nutrition because of their unique approach to human health. Ascent offers an organically grown, mold and mycotoxin-free coffee. It provides a pure, clean, and rich flavor without those pesticides that most coffees are treated with. They also offer an algae oil DHA, which is used to support brain health, memory, and focus, as well as proper nervous system development in adults, children, athletes, and even pets. Now, lastly, their unique crafted wild pine pollen is used to support cardiovascular health, hormonal function, and a healthy libido. Your purchase not only supports this channel, but the business of a former Hawkeye. Visit goascentnutrition.com or click the link in the description below and use the code Hawkeyes. That's the code Hawkeyes to receive 15% off your total order from Ascent Nutrition. So appreciate Ascent Nutrition as always. And as you heard me state in that ad, it's just great stuff. And they've got great coffee. I talk about it almost every segment. It's mold and mycotoxin free, and it's got great flavor. See, when you take those those pesticides out of the equation, and the mold and the mycotoxins, all those things that actually harm your health. It actually helps the taste. Funny how that works. So again, get yours at goascentnutrition.com and use that code Hawkeyes. And speaking of Hawkeyes, we go to one of our favorite, I shouldn't say one of our favorite callers, but he's been here for a while. Vincent's on the line. How you doing, Vincent? It's been a while.
Hey, Corey, how you doing? Yeah, work's been keeping me busy.
I appreciate you calling in this evening.
Yes, sir. The first thing I wanted to touch on, I'm sure you watched the Rutgers game and how our D-line performed. I just wanted to say, I know law enforcement officials in Piscataway are still determining if they're going to bring up any kind of charges against certain members of our D-line, probably more importantly, Lucas Van Ness. I feel bad for that quarterback. I did not think he was going to get up after a couple of those hits that our D-line put on him last Saturday.
As impressed as I was with the D-line and not taking nothing away from it, I'm with you, Vincent. That quarterback, third-string guy who's playing, Evan Simon,
right?
Boy, he just kept getting up time after time after time. He's
unfazed.
He's a tough kid. I mean, I'd love to have him on Iowa's quarterback room. I'm not saying he'd be the starter. He might be. But regardless, I'd love to have his toughness there because, boy, what a leader out there.
Yeah. On that Cooper DeJean pick, I was watching Van Ness closing in and literally picked the kid up and plant him on his back, and he just shook it off. No problem. I surprised me that he even got up after that, but good defensive line performance by Iowa last Saturday. Just wanted to kind of give them some credit. Don't know if you saw or if you're aware. Have you seen who's leading the Big Ten right now as far as receptions and yardage and touchdowns?
Yeah, yes.
Yes. I'm
aware of Charlie.
What's that? Yeah.
41
catches, 533 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's a career year for him at Iowa. But you can see now why he went to Purdue. And not to touch too much on that, but just a couple things I wanted to just say real quick. And I have other callers on here. As a lifelong Hawkeye fan, obviously I'm hoping for a good outcome come Saturday. I actually agree with what you were saying as far as what Jim Harbaugh's game plan I think is going to be. It's going to be hey, let's play smart. He knows what he's facing with the Iowa defense. I don't think he's going to put his offense in a precarious position to turn the ball over to give us any momentum or short fields or opportunity. I think we're going to get a good, healthy dose of Blake Corum all 4 quarters. I don't think that they're going to be trying to shoot the ball downfield too much at all.
See, I disagree with that, actually, Vincent. You've probably heard how I've kind of tried to explain what I'm trying to explain.
Sure.
I actually think Harbaugh might be baited into doing that.
Just out of ego, or
well, part of it might be that. I think the bigger part of it is I think he's going to look at the injuries that Iowa is dealing with right now in the secondary and say, boy, we can take advantage of these corners. You know, if Iowa was healthy back there and you know, they had Terry Roberts was healthy and Jamari Harris was healthy, I think then you look and say, okay, you know, Michigan played Jamari Harris last year. That Harris played a lot in that game. Of course, they're familiar with Riley Moss. I think those two guys they may respect enough, but I think I have a hard time seeing Harbaugh not licking his chops, looking at Cooper DeJean, who's a redshirt freshman. Redshirt, what is he, a sophomore? I think he's a sophomore, right?
Somewhere there, yeah.
I don't know. I would not be surprised to see the injury situation for Iowa baiting Jim Harbaugh into making decisions that he doesn't really need to make.
I would not, or excuse me, it would not surprise me, but being that it's in Kinnick and having that kind of environment and seeing what other teams have faced, and you could be right. You could absolutely be right. I just think, in my eyes, don't turn the ball. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, don't turn it over. You're in a hostile environment. And he's even said himself, it's a tough place to play. Again, it wouldn't surprise me, but it just my feel as a fan and as a spectator, I just feel he's going to try to do the ground and pound and see where that gets him. versus trying to air it out and give any kind of momentum to Iowa. But you could be right. He could, and you're absolutely correct in looking at our secondary and saying, look, these guys they're young, inexperienced, and then you have backups, that are going to be in there in key roles and key positions. But I mean, yeah, we'll see. It could be.
Yeah, and I don't know. And, I know there's a lot of Michigan fans listening to this show right now, which I appreciate the Michigan fans who are here. But I do think there are some Michigan fans who would take offense to me saying that I don't know that Jim Harbaugh is I don't know how to put this. I don't know that his decision making has always been the best. That might be the most docile way I can say this. Let's not forget he was looking to go to the league this past offseason.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw
be the
that.
next Vikings coach, and it was just a bad look. And to me, it wasn't very well thought through for Jim Harbaugh. Now he seems to have recovered as far as his team. It doesn't seem like he's lost any guys, mentally that I can see at least. Again, we're early, but I thought that was going to be a problem when that was a PR. I won't say disaster, but it didn't look good. So I don't know. You wonder if there's something that ended up showing up in a big pressure situation like against Iowa. But Jim Harbaugh's not immune to big games. I mean, heck, he played here in '85 as were they number one or number two? I can't remember who was number one, who were number two in that '85 game. But he's played in these games as a quarterback. They went to the college football playoff last year. Beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. So I'll give him credit. I think he'll handle the situation well. But he's also never won in this stadium as a player or a coach.
Ooh, good fact. I did not know that. I know they came in '85 number 2.
Yeah, they lost in '85, and then they lost in '16. And let's not forget, too, Jim Harbaugh got hit by a mail truck as a kid in Iowa City.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Here's I'll give you a quick take, and I'll hop off here so other people can get on. This is kind of what I see coming on Saturday. We're going to give every effort on defense to try to stymie Michigan's offense. But boy, they got a really good O-line, not just O-line, but even their tight ends and their backups are good pass catchers and blockers. And I just think we're going to get a heavy dose of the run game. We're going to try to stymie that as best we can, but we're going to have our defense on the field probably 80% of the time because we're not going to be able to produce anything on offense. And to your point that you alluded to earlier, and Don Patterson's alluded to, every game you should be game planning for your opponent. And just like Patterson said, Coach Fry did, you're going to have plays in for specific players and specific games that are tailored to that game. And we don't do that, or just from my perspective. The reason I don't think Brian does that is he doesn't have confidence in himself as a play caller, nor does he have confidence in the players themselves to execute these plays. Even though we have guys that could get the job done, he just doesn't have the confidence in himself nor the players to execute that. And so you're going to see the same style of the same offensive execution that we've seen the last 4 weeks. I don't think we're going to see anything jump out at us, or any significant changes or any new wrinkles that Brian's going to put in. It's going to be.
So you don't think there's going to be any play called in this game that we haven't seen before? Is that what you're saying?
Not from an offensive standpoint. No, I don't. Now, when it comes to special teams, it's feasible. If Woods can talk Ferentz into doing that, but offensively, and this is what I saw in the Rutgers game. I'm sure you saw it too. We're actually splitting out Laporta because this is who he has confidence in. We're splitting him out wide to a wide receiver 1 to try to get single or one-on-one coverage, because you have a 6'5", tight end. So he's trying to get mismatches on the field to our advantage to get chunk plays downfield. And we hit on one, missed on another. We're trying to get Brody Brecht involved, another 6'3", 6'4" receiver. He's trying to get the ball down the field, but he doesn't have confidence in his players to do anything outside of the norm. Like when we saw in the Big Ten championship game, the halfback pass from, I think, Gavin Williams trying to hit
Pottebaum.
Oh, what's our fullback? Pottebaum. That was probably the one thing that he had, or wrinkle he had up his sleeve for that game. Other than that, I don't see anything. I don't forecast anything.
Well,
Even
that
though
was,
he can,
but Vincent, that was a new play. That wasn't something we've seen.
yeah, but this is Michigan, Corey. We can't have one play to think it's going to catapult us into
I agree. I
having
agree.
momentum for the. You have to have a game plan from an offensive perspective, from an offensive coordinator. You have to have a game plan put in place that you know is going to be effective and can gain yardage against a defense like Michigan, and also stay with them toe to toe, point wise. You know you're going to probably have to score in the high 20s or maybe even the 30s to stay with these guys to have a chance to win, and that's just not our offense. Even though we can do it, and I know we can. And even with Petrus, to give Petrus a little bit of credit for the Rutgers game, I thought he played pretty darn well. He was efficient. He made good decisions. He put the ball in good places where receivers had a chance to haul in passes, especially Brecht. He had a couple that really Brecht should have gotten but didn't.
Nevada.
Was that the Nevada? I thought it was against Rutgers where he had a.
Was that Nevada? Because Brecht had one target against Rutgers.
Okay, I must have been thinking Nevada then, but I know he looked efficient. Nothing crazy, but he looked efficient. But what I mean by our offensive game plan is we have a line that's struggling, and all of our offensive play calls that are passes, generally they take time to develop, and we don't have the line to support pass protection to allow that to take place. Our line is not giving Petrus the time to get those, or to allow those plays to develop downfield that we can execute them. So the smart thing to do, if you're an offensive coach, you have to shorten up that release time from your quarterback. If you have to go to shotgun, that's something you have to do. Or even if you're going to come out of or from underneath the center, you have to have a 3-step drop, have receivers running short routes, have short route trees for these receivers, crossings, quick outs, things that get the ball out of Petrus's hands fast to keep the ball moving and to keep the yard, or to keep you ahead of the chains. And we just don't do it because I don't feel Brian has confidence in himself as a play caller, nor does he have confidence in the players, even though I feel that we have the players that can execute that style of offense. I'm rambling. Sorry. Or Corey, I'm sorry. Just my perspective.
Yeah, and I wanted to respond to something, and I kind of spaced out there for a second.
Yes.
What I was going to say, but do you like it when I disagree with you, Vincent?
Absolutely, it's good. It's good conversation.
Okay, because I disagree with something you said. Now I can't remember what you said.
But
listen, we agree on one thing, and that is that Iowa needs to be more creative. My only point in bringing up the halfback pass last year is that is an example of at least they did bring something to the table that was different. If they come up this game and run exactly the same things they ran against South Dakota State, exactly the same things they ran against Iowa State and Rutgers and Nevada, then shame on Brian. That tells me that you did not game plan anything different in the offseason, because you're pulling them out in this game against the number 4 team in the country at home. Yeah, you're pulling it out, and you're pulling it out against Ohio State too, and you're pulling it out against Wisconsin. These are the games where the season is going to be won or lost for a lot of Hawkeye fans. They've seen Iowa beat Illinois a million times. They've seen Iowa beat even Minnesota or Northwestern. It's and they've won some games like this in Kinnick. We've acknowledged that. 4 of the past 5 games played in here against top 5 teams, Iowa has beaten. But that doesn't mean that it's been consistent, and that doesn't mean that Iowa has. I mean, look back in 2017, that game was brought up earlier, the Ohio State game. You remember what happened the week after the Ohio State game?
Yeah, I think we got our butts handed to us by.
We got absolutely embarrassed at Madison.
Was it Penn State or was it Wisconsin? Who was it that we played?
It was Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, that's right.
We put up a big bagel. We put up a big bagel on offense. We had 2 pick sixes from Josh Jackson.
Jackson.
We can applaud the big wins all we want, but they haven't been consistent enough. And oftentimes we followed up a great win with a terrible loss. Or in 2016, let's think about that Michigan win for a second. Remember what happened the week prior to the Michigan win?
Yes.
Iowa got absolutely blitzed on the road in Happy Valley. So
Penn State, yep.
Yeah. So my point is, Iowa fans have had their ups and downs, and you ought to have something creative and pull out all the stops in this game.
You need to have something creative, but if you're telling me, I'm going to go back to the last year's Michigan game in the Big Ten championship. If you're telling me that for 4 quarters that your best expansion of your offense or wrinkle is just to pull out a halfback pass, you got bigger problems, or you have no confidence in the rest of your scheme as an offensive coordinator if that's the best that you got. And if you're telling me
the problem is those bigger problems. I agree with everything you just said. If that's the best you got, pulling out a halfback pass, then you have bigger problems. I agree with you, but you see what I'm saying, Vincent? Right now, those bigger problems cannot be solved.
I agree they can't be solved by Brian Ferentz. If you're telling me that
it's season, these are huge issues, right? Can we agree?
Yes, but if you can't scheme any offensive coordinator that's worth their salt, you take the players that you have and you scheme to their strengths. Would you agree to that?
Yes, I do.
And
but
so
yeah.
Go ahead, Corey. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No. I just was going to say, like, how many new plays are they going to be developing for their personnel midweek? Like, at this point, you've got what you got. Those you should have been looking at your schedule, and some of it's based on what you played last year in games. I mean, I would think the Purdue game's a game they had marked. The Wisconsin game is marked. The Michigan game is marked for obvious reasons. You have to come up with these things prior to the season. I'm just saying, at this point, if you were lazy and didn't get it done in the offseason, then you better figure out a way to put a Band-Aid on it now. That doesn't mean it's a permanent solution, but a trick play might be the best you got.
I'll say this. I know most people would think that very thing. If you're going to implement new things into your offense, you're going to want to do it during camp, or prior to the season. But I've coached on the offensive side of the ball for 5 years. You can, on a week-to-week basis, implement new things in your offense, especially if you see weaknesses in the defense for an opponent that you're facing. You can implement things on a weekly basis with your players and simplify them for them to execute to be successful. And just to give you a short snippet, and I'm going to get off here because I'm sure you have other people want to talk. We're short at the wide receiver position. We've got Brody Brecht, Arlen Bruce, and some walk-ons after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have skill position players that we can still put out there that can be effective. What I mean by that is, even though Caleb Johnson plays running back, Gavin Williams plays running back, and LaShawn Williams plays running back, these are still guys that you can either split out, have 2 set in the backfield, and run a quick passing game that's extremely effective to get guys out in space, and also to make sure that you're not allowing a defense like Michigan just to stack the box against you. So you're going to loosen them up as well. You can make these adjustments on a week-to-week basis, but unfortunately, Brian doesn't have that mentality, doesn't have that foresight to want to run an offense like that. And I don't know if it's from Kirk on down, but you can do that, and I'm surprised he doesn't. And I'll turn it back over to you, Corey, and I'll get off here. Greatly appreciate the time, Corey. You're always awesome. You need to get some merch out because I'd be the first to buy it. And again, I appreciate all the time this evening.
Appreciate it, Vincent. And,
all right, brother. Have a good night.
Yep, we'll talk soon. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
I don't disagree with what Vincent said there at the end at all. No, we should be able to implement some new things on a week-to-week basis. Absolutely. I'm just saying, if we haven't done it in the offseason, if we haven't done any, if we haven't been creative to any extent during the offseason, don't expect it now. But that doesn't excuse it. I think we're on the same page with that. Whatever Iowa has, they better pull out on Saturday. I've said that about 3 times now. And we welcome, this should be a fun one. We've got a Michigan fan. Mike is here with us. Mike, how you doing today, sir?
Pretty good, Corey. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Boy, you are a instigator in the chat. Man, I swear half the comments are you and let's see, Michigan fan. Let me find this comment from Michigan fan before we what's the comment I wanted to throw up here that I thought was hilarious. Where is this? I know that you just called in to talk, but I want to get this out of the way first.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, where is this comment from Michigan fan? Oh, here it is. He says, remember you lost 42-3 in the Big Ten championship game last year, and that team is better than your team this year.
I would agree with that.
Based on what?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say
your
that
in-depth knowledge of Iowa football.
Okay, I follow all of college football. Period. I happen to be an alumnus that actually likes football from
Sure.
across the country, and I pay attention to Big Ten. But I mean, you have to admit, I mean, I'm not saying Spencer Petras is great, but he was better last year than he was this year.
I think he's the same exact quarterback.
Well, I mean,
I think he's the same exact quarterback since the day he started in late October in 2020, Mike, and that's not defending him at all.
Oh, I understand that. And I kind of wonder, is like, I haven't seen too much of Padilla. It's like, I mean, is he really that bad that he can't get the start over Petras?
We wouldn't know because we don't really get a good look at these guys. We got to see. I thought Alex was better last year. Now his numbers didn't reflect that, but the numbers don't always tell the full story. I think we rely on numbers a lot, which is fine. But yeah, we can go in circles on that conversation. We've milked that cow till she got completely bone dry, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I was wondering if you saw that right as you were coming on, it was starting the second half. There's a how the Voice of College Football has those simulation games for the upcoming week.
Yeah.
And they were doing Michigan, Iowa, and you wouldn't believe at the half, Petras had 258 passing yards at the half. And I'm going like, Corey's got to be loving this, because I think if he's wanting to justify his Iowa pick come tomorrow, this is going to be something he wants to look at and go, yeah, I feel a little bit better now.
Mike, I have to admit this. I've never sat and watched one of those from start to finish. Once in a while, I'll jump on there and skip to the end and be like, oh, I got a few extra minutes here. I'll see what happened. But
well, they're mostly junk. But I figured your show it started coming on like maybe 15, 20 minutes before you went live. So I thought, you know what? I got time to kill. I was done with my schoolwork. I'll go ahead and watch it.
I appreciate you being here and being a part of an Iowa show. I don't mind if you're, respectfully debating with Iowa fans. I have no problem with that at all. I saw a lot of Michigan fans in the chat, and I see some Michigan fans say that they love me. Some Michigan fans say they hate me. And
no, I'm a fan. And in fact, I was trying to. I heard from Dre over on our channel that you were supposed to come over there sometime this week, and I never saw you.
I was there today.
When was this? I missed it.
Yeah, that was 4:30. Well, you can go back and watch it. 4:30 to 5:30. Well, I wasn't on there the whole time. I was on there for about a half hour, maybe a little less. Yeah, Michigan Live.
Well, oh wait, you said 4th. Yeah, to explain, I was still at work because I wanted to catch just hanging out with the guys over there, kind of talking the Michigan Iowa. And I think a lot of us are probably going to go away after this Saturday. I don't plan on it, but
what's going to go away?
There's a lot of the Michigan fans, clogging up your channel.
Well, no, they're not clogging up. I mean, yeah, you're right. There's going to be some that don't continue listening, and I understand that. But, Mike, there is not a fan base in the Big Ten that has been as active on my channel, not counting Iowa fans. And I'm talking over the last year. There hasn't been another fan base that hangs out on this channel like Michigan fans do.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I mean, you got Jeffrey over there for Ohio State, but I'm surprised there's not more of them, because I mean their fan base is just as they're as rabid as we are. I'll say that.
I understand.
But I mean, what other schools in the Big Ten are really gonna? I mean, Nebraska's got their own problems to worry about. They're on their own channels, trying to put in Craigslist ads for a coach. And how many Indiana and Illinois and Northwestern? I remember going to the 247 sports page over on Facebook back when I had a Facebook account. It was empty. You couldn't find I don't even think Rutgers fans exist.
Mike, they sold out that game this past Saturday.
And how big is their stadium?
60,000.
Wow. How many of those were your guys?
I don't think that many, honestly. Their capacity is 52,000.
Well, I mean,
I I was impressed. I'm with you. I didn't think that Rutgers fan base was that supportive. Now that, as Greg Schiano mentioned after the game, they got to figure out a way to keep the fans there because I think a lot of them were gone by halftime, or at least by the end of the third quarter. But no, I was impressed by the show out there, and that'd be great for the East. You're a Michigan guy. You're an East, Big Ten East guy. It'd be great for the Big Ten if Rutgers was competitive.
Well, I'd like it if every team was competitive.
Yeah,
and even our sellers in the East, which Rutgers and it used to be Maryland. A lot of people are saying there's still a bad team. They look better. I mean, you could say that we didn't play all that great, and you'd be right. Because we had some close calls last year. This could be our close call this year. Jury's still out, but we kind of need the East to kind of prop this up because the West has just been terrible. I mean, just absolutely terrible.
Oh, that's not true at all, Mike. That's not true at all. You can say that, and you're not making the East any better by saying that. That's completely, undoubtedly false. The East, the West. You say the West has been terrible. Seriously?
Well, I remember the first week when the week 0 when Nebraska played Northwestern over in Ireland.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking in my preseason, I had Northwestern as being the worst team in the Big Ten, and then when they ended up beating Nebraska, I'm like, oh my God, what's going on?
Okay, so are we talking about just this year, or are we talking about historically in the West? No,
I'm talking this year. I thought Northwestern would be the worst team in the Big Ten this year.
Well, Minnesota just absolutely waxed Michigan State Saturday. Waxed them. double.
I will give you that, but I also think that Minnesota is probably, actually I don't want to say probably, they are the best team in the West. Sorry for you guys. I would put you guys.
You're not hurting my feelings at all.
I think that you and Wisconsin are kind of competing for the silver on this one. Normally I would think Wisconsin, but after what I saw, what Ohio State did, I'm lost in them. And I think Jim Leonhard talked his way out of a lot of potential head coaching jobs after what Ohio State did to him.
Boy, yeah, I think we're maybe reacting too severely based on one or two games. And let's remember, Mike, Penn State and Purdue was one heck of a game during week 1. And Penn State looks awful good. And Purdue right now, they just they nearly lost to FAU this past week. So it's a week-to-week thing. I think we got to wait a while before.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely week to week. I think Penn State, they got a little bit of a boost because they went down to Alabama and just shellacked Auburn. But that was before we realized that Auburn is just really not that good of a team. They've kind of fallen from grace a little bit. And, I can't remember, is Harsin still there yet, or has he been fired yet, or is he on his way out still?
I don't know that guy. Who cares? I think he's still there.
Like I follow college football all around the country, not just the Big Ten, not just Michigan.
Yeah.
I know that he's one that's, he's probably on his way out. But I think a lot of people are, kind of high on Penn State based on what they did to Auburn. Because like I said, they went down there and they won, was it 42-13 or something? I mean, they just completely knocked them out of the water, which, we kind of need that for the East, because it's basically, there's kind of an argument between, the Big Ten East and the SEC West about which is the top division in football. And then, that's why I'm rooting for Iowa, because I want some teams like Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue to kind of come back up and, get a little bit of glory again, because, as right now, it seems like, Minnesota's kind of rowing the boat on the West right now. And I'm kind of looking for us to kind of get, respectable, because there's just too many media. I mean, they're talking about like ACC and Big 12 being better than us. And I'm like, I don't know where you're seeing, and God forbid anybody mentions that the Pac is a legitimate conference.
Well, again, a lot of the struggles that I think people are attributing this stuff to have been from Northwestern and Nebraska. Those are the two teams, and those two teams may be the two worst teams in the Big Ten. Probably are right now, frankly.
Yeah,
they're probably the two worst teams in the Big Ten. But I'm just saying, Purdue hasn't done anything to convince me that they're not legit. Yes, they struggled with FAU without their quarterback. Yes, they lost on the road at a good Syracuse team. But I still think the Purdue's going to have a say in who wins this division in mid to late November. Wisconsin got beat by a really, really, as you know,
Yeah.
Dynamic Ohio State offense. No, do I think Wisconsin is the same defense as we have typically seen? No, not necessarily. They have a lot to prove, but I'm just saying, let's just wait. We're just now getting into Big Ten play. This is the first Big Ten game for Iowa. Let's just wait and see what happens. Mike, if Iowa beats Michigan on Saturday, which I know you don't think will happen, if Iowa beats Michigan on Saturday, that's going to be a pretty big West over East result.
Yeah, that would definitely put you back on the map. Definitely put you ranked, in my opinion. I mean, there's no way they can keep you out of the rankings with a win against us, because that puts you at what, 4-1?
4-1 with the one loss to Iowa State. Yeah, I think you're probably ranked. But I don't really care about rankings. But yeah, I think you're probably ranked based on how the voters do things. And they probably will be ranked, frankly.
I think they should be ranked, and I think people are kind of sleeping on Iowa State. I mean, they're not a world beater by any stretch, but I think it's mainly because the Big 12 just doesn't have that clear favorite this year. It's clearly not Oklahoma after what Kansas State did them in their own backyard, but Iowa State has a potential to possibly finish a top 3 team in the Big 12, which would make your loss look better.
Absolutely.
I figured it's probably going to, they could easily be up there, with like the Baylor and the Texas and even the Oklahoma State. Things kind of pan out. And if that happens, then your loss at the Cyhawk kind of looks a little bit better. And like I said, you got enough games in the West that, you have a real potential to be a 9-3 team.
Potential? Yeah, tough schedule, but what's your feel on the game Saturday, Mike?
I'm thinking that I kind of had it around like a 27-9, 31-9, something like that. I think that
it's going to be competitive.
I think it's going to be competitive for about 3 quarters. It kind of like it was last year. I mean, I don't think we're going to just absolutely pour it on the fourth like we did last year, but I think it'll be, I don't think it'll be over at the half. Let's put it that way.
I appreciate you as a Michigan fan acknowledging the fact that the game really got away from Iowa in the fourth.
Oh, yeah. Well, I watched the game.
Yeah, well, but there's a lot of Michigan fans who tell me it was an absolute bloodbath. And
well, yeah, those are the same ones
really
who said
peace.
Those are the same ones that, Wisconsin scored 21 in Ohio State when, you turn on at the end of the first quarter, I think it was like 28-0. So clearly Ohio State just, had Wisconsin on lock. So you don't really count, Wisconsin scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter when it was over. So just like, our game, last year in the Big Ten championship, it was over at the end of 3. Now, if they want to pile it on at the end, then there was no point in saying, 39-point loss, you got your, butts whipped. It's like, it was a solid win, but, I'm not going in there saying, we just, we're that much better than you. What happens, in the last half of the fourth quarter, whenever the game's in hand, that doesn't really matter.
I agree.
I tend to look at halftime scores, like, what's the score at the half? If it's 35-0 at the half, then it doesn't really matter if it ends 38-17. That doesn't mean, so if you outscored a 17-3 in the second half, doesn't mean, you were better.
Right.
And like I said, it is what it is. And I think that after 3 quarters, in our game, it's not going to be in doubt. That's when we start, bringing in, CJ Stokes and, all our, our plethora of backup tight ends that want to get some time. But, I have concerns. I mean, I know that Campbell looks legit. And was it Dijon, I think, is back there? He looks pretty good too. But I think it was kind of a good test with Maryland, because Maryland's, I know this is not going to be popular, but I think their secondary is every bit as good, if not maybe a little bit better than Iowa's. They've got some horses in them. Now, their front 7 is not great, but Maryland does have a secondary that's worth noting.
Yeah, I think they're improved.
And, J.J. McCarthy, while he was hitting all these long balls against all these little sisters of the poor that were playing in the beginning, he didn't do all that good, in Maryland. He overshot a couple, not like by 10 yards, but enough that, it made a lot of people kind of question his ability. And it's like, this is not who he is Harbaugh's just going to have to calm him down. And it kind of resulted in him making some really stupid mistakes, putting the ball on the ground, which I think that, they're going to kind of talk him down off of the ledge so that he won't be, trying to play all this hero ball against Iowa, because I don't think it's going to require that. I think, kind of have to just go down to the, bread and butter, do a lot of RPOs, core him on the ground. And I don't see this as being a real competitive game towards the end. I mean, I don't think we're going to, it's not going to be no 39-point blowout, but I don't see this as a competitive game once the fourth quarter hits.
Well,
just my opinion.
I appreciate your take, Mike, and I got a bunch of callers piled up here. But
yeah. There's some Iowa guys in there.
No, you're good. I appreciate you calling in. I enjoyed it. Calling anytime, sir.
Oh, no problem.
Good
Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.
All right, we are plugging along here, and Will, who has been trying to call in, because he was on our phone line earlier, and he's been waiting his turn patiently in StreamYard. Then we got Michael, Ryan, and Ben. Will, how you doing? And I apologize for some of the technical errors we dealt with earlier.
Hey, no problem. I mean, third time's a charm, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, so just going back to kind of what we were talking about earlier a little bit into some of your other callers' points. To Owen's point about Cooper DeJean. I mean, he's a stud. There's no doubt about that. However, when you talk about the trick plays and all that fun stuff, I get it, and I'm right there with you and everybody else. He's out on the field enough, and we need him enough where he's at, and you can see that they get worn down a little bit being out there as long as they are as a whole defensive unit. So I think having him out there where he is fine by me, and not trying to do the trick stuff. I get we need to get something working, but I just go back to do your job. Everybody's got a job to do out there. The receivers got to run their routes. They have to be good concepts. Brian has to do his job, to get them open. Petrus has to do his job. I know that that's a far cry and a big ask sometimes, but to throw those wrinkles in, I think we've got enough. I think, like Vincent was saying, I think we've got enough players that can make plays that are on the offensive side. We just need to get them the ball, and we need to get them in space and get them in a spot where they can succeed. To stay with the defense, though, I think obviously Jack Campbell, obviously Cooper DeJean, we're getting big minutes out of them. Big tackles. They're staying on point. Little misses here and there, but nothing massive that's hurting us. And I think one person that's being kind of undershadowed a little bit is Quinn Schulte. I think he's giving some absolute solid minutes out there on defense. He's a solid tackler, doesn't miss his assignments. He hits hard, and give him a little props, because I know a lot of people are big on Cooper and Jack, but Quinn plays great in the backfield there.
I agree, and I mean, you have a right to your opinion, and I respect your opinion on the Cooper DeJean thing. And I understand where you're coming from when you say you got to do your job. My concern is, I don't know that Iowa has the personnel right now to get it done by doing their job. And I don't know that they have the coaching to coach that personnel to be able to do their job well enough to what we need on that side of the ball. That's my only reason. I wouldn't normally advocate for a player going from defense to offense for even a few plays in a game if it wasn't a desperate situation. And offensively, Iowa's in a desperate situation. You can talk about improvement against Rutgers, but the numbers say Iowa's offense is still in a desperate situation. That's why I would advocate for it. But I respect your opinion. I see where you're coming from.
No, and I mean, I don't disagree with you, and then everybody who says that. I mean, trust me, I'm on board too, because I want something to happen here. But like I said, do your job thing, and you're saying, hey, the job isn't getting done. Where I come from, if you're not doing your job, then guess what? You're out of job. And that kind of starts at the top with the play caller and your scheme and all that fun stuff, and it trickles down. So. Obviously we won't go into that, but that's where my feelings are with regards to, if the job's not getting done, well, who's the boss, who's in charge, who's not setting up the right example, who's not doing the right things.
Yeah, we're in a complete agreement on that. No question about it.
But just going through real quick, like running back wise, I know Gavin Williams was dinged up last couple of weeks, and he kind of dances a little bit in the backfield. You kind of see that, and he's looking for a spot to open up. But I know he's also dinged up too, so I know that doesn't bode well for a solid running back. I don't know if the 3 running back system is sustainable, just because you get guys that get so cold. I think we saw that a little bit with you're gonna have to help me with his name. Last year, he kind of had some fumble issues. Great
Ivory
character
Kelly
guy. Thank you. Ivory Kelly Martin. Wasn't in there for a lot of the snaps. Tyler Goodson took most of them. Then he comes in there. He gets a few reps here and there. And you're just kind of cold. You're not used to how the defense is reacting to the blocks that the offense is trying to set up. And so you're kind of a step behind, personally, and I think when you, as an offensive line guy, I played the offensive line throughout all of high school. And if you get somebody new back there, it's a little weird for the offensive line as well to you're used to one thing, right? And then all of a sudden it changes up a little bit. Maybe somebody runs a beat faster or hits the hole just a little bit different, and that can mess things up. But I think like the dual running back with LaShawn Williams, and I know obviously he was out for personal reasons with his dad and everything, but I think he was running well before. I think he was running well during the Rutgers game, but I think Caleb Johnson is probably outshining them both. Third string back. And my personal opinion from watching him, run north-south, hit the holes and go is he should be up there in RB1 or RB2.
Yeah, and it was good to see Caleb Johnson rewarded with a spot on the depth chart this week because I think he's their best back, frankly. But I like LaShawn. You brought him up. Gavin, I'd like to think Gavin has a role moving forward, but boy, I think it's going to be hard. Both of those guys run with authority. Caleb Johnson has some physical attributes you just simply cannot teach with his size and speed and stride. But yeah, if the offensive line can at least be decent the rest of the year, they've got good personnel behind them.
Yeah, and to your point about the offensive line, I watched an interview today with George Barnett, the O-line coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, he had some good things to say. And, obviously they did make some improvements against Rutgers. It is Rutgers, so you never really know what that improvement looks like when you put it against the Michigan defense, right? But my biggest thing over the last 4 games, and I played center in high school, what is the center QB exchange. It's off. It's bad. In shotgun snaps, it's high. If Padilla was in there, some of those balls are getting over his head because he's just shorter than Petrus. The timing looks bad. And I know that he was high praise on our center today and saying that, he's making strides and moving forward, which is good to hear. But it's got to transfer to the game. And I think I'm not making any excuses for Petrus. Don't get confused there. But I think part of that comes with that quarterback center exchange. If it's not crisp, if it's not going, that's just one more kind of cog in the machine that could potentially go wrong. And it's something in his head that he's thinking, oh boy, I got to get this snap and get going. And he's not even paying attention. You only got 25, 30 seconds. He's not paying attention to defensive setup or, somebody blitz in or checks on the line and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate your insight as a former center. It did feel like there was maybe some improvement in that regard from in the Rutgers game, but Don has mentioned, Coach Patterson has mentioned Spencer having to go up for these snaps. And Spencer, I give him credit. He's done a nice job with that. But, he's 6'5". He shouldn't be having to jump up or even really reach up for these snaps out of the shotgun. Yeah,
and that's where, again, the under center is one thing. When you got checks on the line with your offense, usually, in my experience, your center is the guy who's that anchor. He's the one kind of calling out everything, any type of blitzes, who's given, who's, shading this way or, helping push one guy to the inside or to the outside and then moving up to the next line and the next level. And obviously, we had Tyler Linderbaum last year. You're going to see a drop-off. I get that. No one's expecting him to be Tyler Linderbaum, probably one of the best offensive linemen we've ever had. But seeing these hiccups and stuff like that is concerning a little bit as well. The last point I'll make about Vince's point with regards to the trick plays and stuff like that. I think that you'll see them. I think that Brian's got a few, but my concern At least I hope he does, because let's be honest, if he doesn't, then we've even got bigger problems than we already have.
Amen.
But my concern is just like the Big Ten championship last year, we run one trick play, it goes south. I mean, it would have gone for a touchdown, but it goes south, and then we just completely forget about anything trick or cutesy or anything the rest of the game. And yes, the game was close until the fourth quarter, but we could have done something. You can't tell me in the how many weeks it was before the Big Ten championship game, couple weeks, that they only had one kind of trick play. I mean,
it's inexcusable. Inexcusable.
So I think it's going to be a close game Saturday. I'd love it to be a night game at Kinnick. I think that adds a little bit more of an element. Yeah, but I think it's going to be close. Iowa needs to play lights out on defense, and they need to just be able to move the ball at least on offense, because even if you're not scoring, you're giving those defensive guys a break. They can't be out there 30 plus minutes in a game when you talk about time of possession. But appreciate you taking the call and sticking with me there after the third time there.
I appreciate you sticking with it, Will, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, Ryan and Ben are on hold here. I'm starting to lose my voice, so I got about another 20 minutes in me, and that'll bring us up to the 2-hour mark. So assuming we don't have any more callers, I'm kind of glad I hate to say this, I'm kind of glad the phone line didn't work tonight, because we'd have even more calls stacked up and probably wouldn't get to all of them. So appreciate everybody being here, and we'll get the phone line fixed before Saturday when we have a Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson. I want to remind everybody, as you can see on the screen, Lemansky is one of several who have went out of their way to become a premium subscriber here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. So appreciate Lemansky and the rest of our newest premium subscribers to become a subscriber. And of course, this is a further way to support the work we're doing here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Next to the subscribe button on the channel, next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm, click join. It should be a little blue or gray button, depending on whether you're looking at it on a browser, on a mobile phone, on the app. Again, click join. You'll find some cool perks that are in the works right now, and are just another way for you to support the channel here and the work we're doing. So appreciate everybody who's joined so far, and if you are so willing, certainly consider it, and we will try to give you what we can as far as perks along the way. So again, Ryan and Ben, you're up next here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Going to take a quick break so I can get a drink of water. We'll be right back. You're watching Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm amidst Michigan Week. You may have heard of the real-life Hawkeye man cave known as Kinnick Under the Kitchen. Well, after lots of hard work, there's not much space left to paint, but the walls are exploding out for public consumption. Under the Kitchen is proud to announce that you can now purchase exclusive prints of some of your favorite Hawkeye legends, including wrestling great Spencer Lee, football players Arlen Bruce, Riley Moss, and Tavian Banks, plus an all-in-one Murray family legacy print featuring Keegan, Chris, and Kenyon Murray himself. Signed and unsigned prints are available, making the perfect collectible or gift for any Hawkeye enthusiast. For more information on purchasing one of these outstanding Hawkeye prints, visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook. That's Under the Kitchen on Facebook. So appreciate Under the Kitchen, Randy Engel, and his great artwork, Hawkeye artwork, down in Mitchellville. If you haven't checked out his stuff, again, Under the Kitchen on Facebook, and appreciate all the support Randy has lent to this channel and partnership over recent months. All right, we add Ryan into the mix. Ryan, how you doing tonight, sir?
Good evening, Corey. How are you?
Doing all right. I'm losing my voice, I guess, but other than that, I'm trekking along.
Well, you're going to have to exercise it because you're going to be screaming your lungs out Saturday and then doing a 2-hour show.
2 hours? Boy, that...
Oh, excuse me, three. I know.
Let's hope it's not. Let's hope it's
you got stamina. Well, hey, we got a lot of celebrating, and you got stamina.
I will say, somebody continue with your comments here, so
I'm
who wants
sorry,
to-
you cut
Yeah.
out.
No, I was just going to say, before you continue with your comments here, CJ had asked this question earlier. Would it cost anything to start the show like a half hour later so people at the game can get home to watch it? Well, I'm hopeful that we're on long enough to where people who are leaving the game can get home and still catch the last half of it. And certainly, if you're not able to watch it live from the beginning, you can go back and watch it later. But I do appreciate people like CJ who find this show to be interesting enough. But anyway, go on with your comment, Ryan. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. So I was watching a different YouTube channel last night, and the guy on there said something pretty interesting. I checked it out. So 5 times Iowa lost by 25 or more points since 2007. When they play that team the following year, Iowa is 5-0 when it comes to covering and 4-1 outright, with Penn State in 2019 on the last second play to lose 21-19 being the loss. So Saturday will be the 6th. So for the bettors out there, 11 seems awfully aggressive. I think it should be more like 6. But with the score last year, being as unimpressive as it was, you can kind of see how that could be a little bit of a trap too. I like Iowa's chances of winning this game. You got a new quarterback coach, and Coach Ferentz, scanned the nation far and wide to find the best quarterback coach he could find, and he found him in Brian. So obviously, he obviously prioritized the position.
Let me just want to emphasize it. He scanned it far and he scanned it wide.
Far and wide. Far and wide.
Yeah.
And the magic silver bullet was right under his nose.
Yeah.
So anyway, obviously I'm being facetious. So, Vincent, who called, I don't know, 3 callers ago or so, I kind of agree with him on what he was saying. I don't know if A, Brian feels confident enough to throw caution to the wind, and B, will Kirk allow it. But the thing is I just feel like you almost have to go into this game to just play like you have nothing to lose. I know that sounds easy, but I think if we just try to run into a brick wall between the guards and get 1.1 yards a carry, it's going to be a lot of 3 and outs. And the gentleman calling a couple callers ago would be right that defense is just going to get gassed. When our defense gives up points, it's usually because they're on the field too darn long. So another idea, it's no secret we're down on offensive personnel, and no offense to a walk-on, but when you got a 5-star safety who played wide receiver in high school and has got to be one of the best athletes on the team, one would think, he wouldn't be rated the way he was if he wasn't a playmaker. Why not line him up a few plays in the slot and just see what's going to happen? I believe, while I can't criticize for who we're starting on defense when your defense is playing this well. I mean, I get it. But when you got an athlete like that, I think he just needs to be more involved on beyond special teams when he's waiting for his turn at safety. So,
well, Will made a comment on the last call, Ryan, that he thinks that guys just need to do their job better. And that is kind of the Kirk Ferentz approach, that we just all have to do our job better. We don't have to switch things around to where guys are playing out of position. I understand that line of reasoning, but I think that's a Kirk Ferentz line of reasoning. I don't agree with it, and I brought up desperate times, call for desperate measures earlier.
Yep.
I'm not talking about Xavier Wampa or Cooper Genie the other side of the ball. I'm talking about being creative with the personnel you have. So you and I are in agreement. I think, boy, you know, the kid's athleticism. He's a freak. There's a reason he's a 5-star.
Whether you got the 2019 LSU wide receiving core at your disposal or the 2022 Iowa wide receiver, of course, everybody knows that you got to always execute better. You know, that's just, but at some point you got to make decisions better too. And when you're, you know, hoping to be able to be similar to past years under this offensive regime where you're 110 on a good year and 131 on your worst year, some of that should go both ways too. And not only is our offense just staler than, you know, a bagel that's been sitting out 2 weeks, it is also unimaginative. And to put some imagination into it and at least just start inserting some athletes who can make a few plays. I'm not saying play Xavier 25 snaps. Maybe it's 5, but let's just see if he can break something. He's an athlete. Let's see what he can do. He's probably not going to play on defense this year, and he's too good to play on special teams. You know, so much of this is why, as much as I like Kirk overall, I would like him a heck of a lot more if he just learned that he doesn't belong anywhere near an offense. He's a good CEO, you know, and obviously, I mean, when Kirk's gone, we're going to be talking about the good old days where we had just lockdown defense and defenses that kept us in just about every game. And so, you know, that being said, I don't know why that has to be this mutually exclusive. And, you know, as far as the Michigan game, it's going to be a lot closer than they think. You know, the reason we won in 2016 from the offensive side, because, you know, you still do have to score some points, is they started scheming plays for Akram Wadley, a lot of passes out of the flat and whatnot, try to get him in space, and he got some big chunks of yards that way. If my memory serves, he had about 165 all-purpose yards and pretty much moved the ball for us exclusively in the second half, which eventually set up the kick. Obviously, the defense was lights out that day. But we gotta be able to at least have a go-to guy. And Laporta is very good, but I mean, I don't think he's going to be much more than 4 or 5 catches. Probably nobody will. So maybe screens for Caleb Johnson and try to get him in space. Maybe put Xavier in the slot, and as we talked about, Cooper in the Wildcat. I mean, that's 3 wrinkles right there that you could do while you're, you know, throwing caution to the wind a little bit. I don't think it's in their DNA, but I think, you know, you recruited these athletes for a reason. They were rated the way they were for a reason. It's not like Xavier forgot how to be a wide receiver in the few months he's been here. So that's kind of my thought. We got to do something different because what's just, you know what the definition of insanity is.
Yeah, and I think every Iowa fan should know what the definition of that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, we're going to probably cover. Will we win? I don't know.
If you're covering, then you have a shot because it's probably time at a single-digit game.
The only thing about it is how many times were you right there in a game that, you know, you were a heavy underdog and you're right there at the end, and then you think back on, you know, Why did we run into a brick wall instead of maybe try to go outside into the flat? Or why didn't we throw it down the field more? Why didn't we target a wide receiver more than 2 or 3 times? There have been times where you look, I think Iowa State's a good example. It was so winnable, and yet just no imagination on offense is going to cost us dearly. And this is too good of a special teams and defense to let the third aspect of the game to weigh you down so far.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks a lot, man.
I appreciate it as always.
Talk to you Saturday.
We'll talk to you Saturday. Thank you, sir. All right, great stuff from everybody, and we've got Ben still waiting on hold here. So want to give a shout out, first of all, before we get to Ben, to the subscribers, the recent members who have subscribed to our premium membership. Jason and Doug, thank you to both of you for being the latest to join on YouTube as a premium subscriber. Again, if you're interested in doing that, you can click the join button. Now, I did see somebody in the chat who said, let me find the comment here from Eric, and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do, Eric, if you're serious about joining. So again, for most people, you can click the little join button next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm. I can tell you this, Eric, you're probably, well, you tell me this in the comment, you're watching on iPhone. Apple, for some reason, iOS limits your ability to join via the app on many of the YouTube channels that offer premium subscriptions. So what you need to do is you need to sign into your YouTube account on a desktop or on a different device and join that way. Don't blame me. Don't shoot the messenger. It's not me limiting you. It's Apple. I'm assuming there's some inconsistencies between Google and Apple and money transfer stuff. That's what I read earlier. So just, again, if you're interested in joining as a premium subscriber, go on a different device, go on a desktop computer, or just go on your browser on your phone and sign into your YouTube account that way, and you should be able to join. And again, you'll get those perks by doing so. All right. I want to thank Burger. They got the 3 in there. Threw me off. Burger, Corey, and Coach Patterson offer the best coverage of Hawkeye sports out there, in my opinion. And thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that compliment. I think Coach Patterson's carrying the load on that, but thank you for being here and for you being a premium subscriber as well. Account 22 wanted to know about score predictions. I know anybody can throw those out in the chat. I will be giving my score predictions tomorrow, so stay tuned right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And we welcome in Ben to the stream. This will be a fun one. Ben, you've been on hold a long time. So first of all, thank you for being patient with the callers and whatnot. You are on mute right now, Ben, just so you're aware. But I hope, first of all, you enjoyed listening back to the conversation I had with Coach Patterson about your topic. I tried to follow through, and I thought we discussed it. And I thought we came to a very fair, reasonable conclusion that I am now in agreement on. Talked me into basically explained it to a point that made sense to me. And my final conclusion on this topic, and maybe you want to touch on some other things, is sure, total offense is not a perfect indication. Neither is points per game. I think the bottom line is, whether you want to say Iowa has the worst offense in the country, it's one of the worst. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Whether it's splitting hairs.
Yeah, I think we can agree on that. So I know it's getting late too. I can see it in your eyes. You're ready to turn it in. So we'll do this fast. But first off, I'll kind of start with that. Thanks for taking my question and relaying it to him. I also hope I wasn't one of the ones droning the other night. I think there was some.
No, not at all. Can I just say this for a second before you go on? And I'm not going to say anything about any specific callers, but did that show seem a little bit off to you that night?
I've noticed that with, and I'm not going to call it a specific call, but with a few callers, it seemed off. Like
it was just
a little bit. Maybe had a good Saturday night. A few of them.
I was going to say, I think there was maybe some some alcohol involved. But I'll just say this:
Yeah.
I told Don this later. I just said I've just never had a show that quite felt like that. Like it was a lot of new callers, and
Mhm.
it was just odd. So, but no, I appreciate your comment was great, and I thought it was a great conversation piece.
Yeah, well, that's good. And yeah, and I was worried that it came off as an endorsement of this offense, and that's not my intention at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you guys kind of came to, I would back off points per game. After hearing your take on that and Don's, I kind of agree. That can be aided by your defense. But I would stand firm maybe on total offense being a pretty incomplete way to judge an offense. I think football needs some sort of metric that's like yards per play with red zone percentage and turnover percentage. If you're familiar with Ken Palm in basketball, they have efficiency ratings. That's taking into
Ken Palm is
he's really good, and he takes into account pace of play and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of missing for football. So someone could probably make a lot of money if they wanted to do that. But yeah, I mean, Iowa-Rutgers was an example of that, where Rutgers, outgained Iowa quite a bit, but I wouldn't necessarily call them the better offense. I think yards per play, Iowa was 5 and Rutgers was 4.9, so it was close. They had 3 turnovers to our 0. So at the end of the day, they're both pretty bad offenses. I think due to game flow and defensive scores, Iowa just didn't run a lot of plays that game, and they outgained us. But total offense for that game, Rutgers was probably inflated. Iowa was probably deflated. But yeah, I think there's probably room for some sort of efficiency metric for college football that's sort of missing, I would say.
I agree, and I think when you're talking about football, I think perhaps part of it is the metrics will probably have to be. It's going to be hard to be all encompassing when you're trying to come up with a perfect metric for football as opposed to basketball. But I will give you what you just said. Ken Pomeroy has been doing it for a long time, and he does a great job with a variety of I don't know how obviously it's a computer that's doing this stuff, but
yeah,
it's incredible.
Because like in Ken Pom, you can have an offense that maybe doesn't score a ton of points, but they're still an efficient offense.
Right.
So like pace of play and all that's kind of factored in there, but yeah, I mean we can kind of move on from that. I just had one more thing on the game this weekend. I think Brian had a good point on these type of games make it fun to be an Iowa fan because I feel like we play a style that can keep us in the game if we do what we're supposed to do. And the last caller had a good point saying that when Kirk Ferentz is gone, we probably will be talking about how dominant some of these defenses were and how lucky we were. I hope that's not the case. I hope we can continue to get better.
Now, let me ask you this: is that when Kirk Ferentz is gone that we're going to be saying that, or is that when Phil Parker is gone that we're going to be saying that?
Yeah, that's a question. It's a fair question.
He's unbelievable. I give Kirk credit for this. At the minimum, he has done a fantastic job at being able to hold on to his best coaches.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't lose coaches to other teams and to the NFL. I mean, with the exception of guys like Tim Polasek, and you lose what's the guy that went to the Chargers, running backs coach from a couple of years ago.
I forgot his name.
But yeah, they've lost some guys, but their foundation pieces: Norm Parker, Phil Parker, I'd say a LeVar Woods. Is a good example. Now he could still leave. Who knows? He's a young guy. But my point is, at the minimum, Kirk has done put good people around. Seth Wallace, as much as I think Seth Wallace, his character has been put into question with some accusations. He's been a very successful linebackers coach and probably would be a coordinator some other place, and he may eventually. But Kirk has done a nice job holding on to these guys.
Right. At the very least, he's surrounded himself with good coaches and like you said, have been able to hang on to. There seems to be some sort of culture of loyalty in that program, not only with coaches, but in the way they recruit as well. Which there's good and bad about that. Like you said about the transfer portal, that's probably a we wish that we'd use that a little bit more, but I think we're so loyal to people in the building.
Well, let me just say this, Ben, real quick, just to add, because you brought up the transfer portal, and I was going to say this earlier. The more I hear, and I'm not saying that there's anything specific from one person that's telling me from inside the program, well, they're going to do this after the more I hear around the program, though, is I think they're going to use the portal more this next offseason. Because I think there's a feeling that I'm getting from certain people that would indicate to me that they're kind of regretful for not using it more, which they should be. I mean, a lot of people were calling for it during the offseason, and that they kind of doubled down. I know they made some efforts and swung and missed on a couple guys here and there. The guy from Hunter Norzad, who was an Ivy League offensive lineman who they had a shot at, and they apparently reached out to a wide receiver as well, and had a running back too. But my point is, I think they're going to go make a harder push for skill position talent in the portal. I hope it's quarterback. I think that's a possibility. I do. But I think they'll make that effort this next year because I think they realize they missed the
they should have been there.
Mark.
And that's sort of the frustration, I think, as a fan. If I find myself sometimes at a crossroads between being appreciative for the success that they've had, but also feeling like we're always slow to adapt. We were slow to adapt to the cash and, taking 3 linebackers off the field. We were slow to adapt to, to that, what you just mentioned. We were slow to adapt to NIL is my guess. I don't know that for sure, but I have a feeling
ultra slow. Yes.
Yeah.
Ultra slow.
It seems like we're always just slow to adapt. And I wish we kind of take the next step. I think that's what a lot of fans are kind of wanting to see.
And just so you're aware, this is something I haven't ever talked on the channel. Do you follow basketball? I mean, it sounds like
I do. Yeah.
So you're aware that Iowa lost. I shouldn't say lost, but lost 2 battles. TJ Power and who's the other kid that they lost to Duke, right? No, where did he? No.
What was his name? I can't remember.
Yeah, long forward whose name escapes me now. It is getting late, but
they were NIL reasons.
The one was absolutely, and I can tell you on a 100% trustworthy source. I won't say who, but you can trust this source that the one was absolutely because of NIL, and I've been told this kid was offered $400,000 per year to be at Tennessee. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying that's the type of you're going up against in every sport, not just, I shouldn't say every sport, the major sports, basketball and football. You're going up against these things, and when you have a head coach at the football program who is the most powerful person in the athletic department, the buck stops with him on all these fronts, because if he wants things to be put in motion, then he's going to put them in motion. That's why I know people didn't like it. Some people thought I was being a homer with Fran. I was kind of defending Fran a lot of the offseason because I don't think he had as much say in these things. What's Fran supposed to do? I know, I can tell you this, Ben. Fran McCaffrey was not happy, and he is advocating. I'm not saying he wants to buy players, but he has made it very clear to people who support the program, to donors. He has made it clear that we need these NIL donations in order to get on the recruiting trail. I don't know what else he can do besides that.
Yeah,
and that was on Kirk.
I would agree with that, and I think Fran, I think, works his butt off recruiting. I know he's been close on a lot of guys and hasn't really landed them. But I do know enough to know that he works very hard recruiting. But yeah, that's frustrating. I've seen that he's been in. I live in Atlanta. He's offered multiple guys from a school here called, it's not even really a school, but it's called Overtime Elite. And it's just like basically, underserved kids will go to Overtime Elite and just like basketball is their path. He's offered multiple kids from there, and I would assume we're not landing them because we're not able to pay him. So,
and I'm certainly not implying that every recruiting battle lost is because of NIL, but that's only going to increase. And Iowa does have NIL structure in place now, but I still don't think it competes with some of these big brands, and it may never, but that's going to be a factor.
Yeah. All right. Well, back to football, I guess.
JP Estrella, that's who we were trying to think
JP
of.
Estrella, got it.
Yep.
So just one thing on the football game this weekend. So I rewatched the Big Ten championship, or most of it at least. Like you said, I think that game was a lot closer than it was that the box score indicated. It was close for 3 quarters, and really Iowa missed a field goal. We missed opportunities in the red zone. Michigan had a trick play. My original thought was 31-14 Michigan. And now that I've kind of rewatched and seen that, I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I'm going 16-14 Michigan. I think a big thing that Iowa has to do is, Michigan, I was at the game in the Big House. That was 2017, I think, Big House. Stanley was a quarterback. We couldn't score.
2019.
Okay, 2019. Yeah, saying that we couldn't score doesn't really narrow it down, but 2019 Big House, Michigan just went man-to-man whole game, just dared us to be able to beat them one-on-one, and we couldn't do it. They play they remind me of the New Orleans Saints, the way they play. They're, very physical man defense. We're not going to be able to carve them up, but we got to be able to take a few shots downfield and try to generate some flags, if nothing else. That's my take on the game. I think we're going to be able to play it close, but I don't really see us winning it. So I'm interested. I know you're not going to give your prediction tonight, but I want to hear it.
Jesse Minter, you got to remember he wasn't around then. Don Brown was the defensive coordinator in 2019. So it's a little bit different defensively. You're going to get a different look than 19. But you will recall that the only reason Iowa was even in that game, I think, it was because of Nate Stanley's toughness. Because even though they didn't score points, they scored 3 points in that game. It was a 10-3 loss. They continued to get into field position. They controlled the field. Go back and watch that game. They controlled.
No, they did. They got to the 40 5 different times and just couldn't get past the 40-yard line.
And I don't remember who the punter was. Would that have been? Sleep Dalton, maybe. Might have been Sleep Dalton, but he good solid punter. But my point is, you need a tough quarterback who. In those situations where you're constantly getting pressured, can either buy you more time with his legs or just buy you more time with toughness. And Nate Stanley was a tough guy to bring down, and that hurts Iowa as well. As you know, Spencer Petras is not a hard guy to take down, and you have a subpar offensive line like they had in 2019. That can undo a lot of what Torrey Taylor and your defense have done field position wise. So it's a valid point. That's a storyline. Is how does Iowa handle the pressure in the backfield? Because I think even though Iowa went up against Will McDonald, who I thought was kind of quiet in the Iowa State game, this is a better defensive line than Iowa's faced all season. And it's not what it was last year with Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo, but it's still much
good,
more talented than anybody else they've faced.
Yeah. Just thinking, how does Iowa score? That's what I keep trying to figure out. How do we score? I don't know if we can run. I think we went with some gap schemes more. I think got away from the zone run a little bit last week. I thought that helped, but I don't know if we'll be able to do that against Michigan or not. So we'll see.
They've got some gap stuff in there. It's not like they can't run gap, but there's still a zone scheme run game. That's what they are, and that's not changing. So you expect some stretch plays that end up, as a loss.
-4.
Yeah. That's just what you're gonna get.
Expect some 2nd and 14s. Yeah.
That's what you're gonna get
that. To the short side of the field, probably. Yeah.
So I hope Iowa runs between the tackles more. I hope that they utilize Caleb Johnson. I'll give all these backs credit. Besides the fumble by LaShawn Williams against who's that against?
That was first game, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. South Dakota State. Besides that game, they have protected the ball really well. And these are young backs. Remember, none of these guys have a ton of experience. Caleb Johnson's a true freshman who just enrolled. So they've done a nice job. I'll give Liddell Betts some serious credit on that. He's taught his guys about ball security, and that's obviously big in a game like this as well.
Right. Seems to be recruiting well too at the position. I know we had one recent decommit, but he's getting into the Florida pipeline, which is good to see.
Absolutely.
All right.
Ben.
That's all I have. Thanks, Corey.
All right, sir. If you get a chance, call in Saturday.
All right, will do. Have a good night.
All right. Have a great night. Thank you, sir. All right. Appreciate everybody being here for the last 2.5 hours or so. Got a few comments here that I want to run through. Todd, thank you for this. Appreciate the compliment. Yes, please hit the like button. Like Todd said, it does help us in the channel. Mudflap, Hawks by 1 million. Lock it in. And Mudflap is another premium subscriber. So thank you, Mudflap. Eric says, finally able to catch a live show during the week. And thank you for being here, Eric. Again, apologize for the phone line issue. But again, I promise to get that resolved before Saturday. Coil stipulate. Iowa hasn't been blown out in Kinnick in 10 years. They ain't putting up 30. That's not totally true. They got blown out last year against Purdue. So it is possible to get blown out. And a 17-point loss at home is a blowout. No, they didn't. Purdue didn't score 38, but 24-7 is a blowout in my book. Peter with the super sticker. Thank you, Peter. Peter Green, like the color. Dave. And Peter, I want you to know I appreciate you. Dave says, Corey, you ever think of a Big Ten channel? Dave, I'd love to be able to do stuff like that, but I not to try to pine for more donations, but boy, I do my best to support what I'm doing here on this channel. And honestly, I don't have time for a Big Ten channel. I'd love to do more Big Ten. If people wanted to invite me on a Big Ten show or something to that nature, certainly I'd consider that, but I appreciate the vote of confidence, Dave. Eric says, is Reganey playing? Yes, he should be, barring some setback. He is, I think, full speed at this point. Blake, the biggest issue I see right now is the exchange and communication between the center and the quarterback. And Will brought that up earlier. That is a concern. You hope it gets better. I would expect center of all positions to improve as the season goes on, given the fact that Brian Ferentz is a former center and he is the offensive coordinator. Courtney, if they did develop anything new in the offseason, doesn't it make sense to wait till this game to bring it out so it's not on tape for Michigan to prepare for to an extent? But Courtney, they did lose to Iowa State. That wouldn't have been a bad time to bring it out. But we'll see. If they don't bring it out this weekend, then that tells me they really didn't have much in the back pocket, which is going to be sorely disappointing. Lemansky, go Hawks. And yes, I tried to hold my own on the Michigan channel earlier. And again, thank you for being a premium subscriber, Lemansky. Berger says, since Penn State game, 9-game averages under Petrus. Offensive points 11, rush yards 108, pass yards 157, total offense 256. Wow. I see those numbers. I've seen those numbers before, and every time I see them, I just don't have anything else to say. Ari Gold, did anyone hear why Terry Roberts is out of action? Well, he may be back this Saturday. I hope he is. He got dinged up. I don't know what the exact injury is. He got dinged up in, I think, last week, and then was going through warm-ups and had a setback. So that's why he missed this past game, but hopefully he's back this coming week. The Educator. He said, how's it going? I don't follow Iowa or Michigan football, but this live showed up on my feed. I love football talk in general. Well, we're happy to have you here, whether you're an Iowa fan or not. Thank you for being here, and hopefully hit the like button while you were here. Rappers and Rabbits, why bench Petrus after a very good game last week? I would argue that was not a very good game. It was a solid game. It was an average to slightly below average performance. He only threw the ball 17 times. Missed some guys. He played okay. And I'm not advocating for him to get benched necessarily. If he struggles, I think you certainly have to explore your options at the quarterback position. I don't think they'll do that, but I still stand by that stance. All Country Boy, one of our premium subscribers here as well this evening. Good to see you here. Lemansky tried to call in over StreamYard, said he had some sound distortion, so he's going to the Apple Store for a fix. Look at Lemansky. Bringing out all the stops to be a part of the show. Appreciate that, sir. Ferris asked how Iowa's secondary is. there's some injuries there, right? Riley Moss is defensive back of the year. Cooper DeJean is a rising star, but they're down potentially Terry Roberts, Brandon Diaz-Fernandez, who's a backup. And they've got a walk-on from Humboldt, Iowa on the 2-deep. So we'll see. Like where they're at safety. Excuse me. But again, with Cooper DeJean having to go back to corner, Sebastian Castro will play more at cash. Eric, Padilla starting has as much chance as a turtle making it across I-80 on Hawkeye game day. Like that from Eric. Nathan, I don't know if anyone's brought this up, but the only 2 touchdowns Iowa has given up this year have been against Riley Moss. I haven't brought that up specifically, Nathan, but fair point. He's gotten beat in the red zone, gotten out of position. That's why I believe Michigan will target him. I believe Michigan will take shots on both guys. I think Harbaugh will not, because I think he's smart enough to see on tape that both those guys have been vulnerable at times. He'll take shots. It could come back to bite him, though, because both those guys, DeJean and Moss, play aggressively. And if J.J. McCarthy forces one, look out. Dave, another comment about the Big Ten channel. I'd love to do it, Dave, if I had the time. All right, Lemansky with the super chat says, great job, Corey, on the Michigan channel. Jake Butt on a different show. Kinnick magic is real. I experienced it in a loss. We got a shot. Yes, we do. Lemansky, there's absolutely an opportunity for Iowa to win this game. But as I said, turnovers are crucial. But good to hear from Jake Butt, a really underrated tight end who, of course, is a Michigan guy. So interesting perspective. I think maybe the well, you could stake a claim to Iowa being tight end university going up against a guy who played for Michigan. So kind of an interesting perspective there. And TJ Heint says, is it too late to go to the transfer portal? Well, certainly this year it is. Would be nice to an extent. But boy, imagine can you imagine the absolute chaos if guys were allowed to switch teams during the season? Can you imagine that? Jeremy's predicting a Michigan win, 13-6. See if I'm missing anything else here. Michigan Man says, good stream. Appreciate you being here and supporting. Riley, should be interesting. Good thing if we lose, I'll be in the mountains with no signal. Wish I was in the mountains at times, Riley. Love the mountains. Would love to hear from where you're chatting from as well. Hawkeye Howard's going to Fox's pregame. Jason, any way Hilson or Patterson can be used, Jazzy and Patterson, not Don Patterson, can be used as wide receivers. I actually brought that up a long time ago. Maybe Devin Hilson, because he's got the size at 6'1". Patterson's a bit smaller. But again, this stage in the game, it's unlikely you're going to do it with 2 guys who have not proven themselves even at their respective positions at running back. Pitch wants to see Ben call in more often. I'm all for that. Absolutely all for that. All right. I think we're about good. I do want to mention one more thing here. If you have not done so, and his link is in the description, every single show, every single segment we cut up. If you need a car, you need a used or a new car, visit this guy, Josue Alvarez at Dewey Ford in Des Moines. Do he treat you better? He do. At Dewey Ford, Josue Alvarez, he can be contacted. Let's get this banner off there. Thank you very much. 515-776-1068. And as you can see in the top right corner, if you tell him that From the Hawkeye of the Storm sent you, you will get a $100 Casey's gas card. So if you need a car and you live somewhere in the area, call Josue, 515-776-1068. Mention From the Hawkeye of the Storm for a $100 Casey's gift card with the purchase of a new or used car from Josue Alvarez. All right. Man, I think that's it. That felt longer than it was. 2.5 hours. Man, the time flies by in a way, and in a way, when it's 11:30 at night, you just want to call it a day. But appreciate everybody being here. Enjoy being a part of the show, and thank you, everybody, for the calls. Remember, as Michigan Man brings out, hit that like button. It does help immensely. Don't underestimate the power of the like. If you haven't done so, please subscribe as well. If you want to sponsor the show, From the Eye of the Storm at Outlook.com, shoot me an email for information. You can donate by Venmo, Cash App, PayPal in the links in the description below. And then, of course, on Saturday, we'll be live following the 11 a.m. game with Coach Don Patterson for Iowa postgame with Coach Patterson. Michigan and Iowa in the rematch. And one more note, follow me on Twitter. You can like the page on Facebook as well, at From the Hawkeye on Twitter and From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. For all of our callers tonight, stay tuned right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Not done with content for the week ahead, but we'll be with you Saturday following the Wolverines and the Hawkeyes.